The wedding was perfect, at least on paper. Gold drapes shimmered under soft chandeliers, rose petals lined the aisle, guests in flowing lace and velvet agbadas filled the Lagos ballroom with laughter and envy. A society wedding, they called it, the kind you see on Instagram, not real life. But Amaka didn't feel real. Behind the heavy oak doors, she stood alone in her white dress, hands trembling slightly. Her heart wasn't racing because of love. It was warning her. Something was wrong. She had known Tobe for 4 years, a charming businessman, sharp smile, and the kind of confidence that made people lean in when he spoke. He swept her off her feet with weekend getaways, surprise flowers, and promises of forever. Her friends called her lucky. Her mother said he was husband material, and at first she believed it. But behind the filtered photos, there were cracks, the possessiveness, the controlling tone, the subtle digs at her career, her friends, her past. But each time she doubted, he'd pull her back in with just enough sweetness to make her question herself. Now, on their wedding day, those doubts stood with her like silent bridesmaids. "Ready?" the coordinator asked, peeking in. She nodded. The music started, the doors opened, and Amaka walked into the spotlight. Gasps followed her down the aisle, not just for her dress, but because of who she was. A self-made woman, head of a small NGO, the girl from Surulere who worked her way through law school, now marrying into a family of old money. She smiled softly, eyes scanning the room. Her mother, her late father's best friend, her former professor, her staff, they were all here. And then she saw him, Tobe, standing in a crisp white tuxedo, grinning, but not at her. He leaned toward his best man and whispered something. They both laughed, too loud. Her stomach turned. She reached the altar. He took her hand. "You look surprisingly good," he said under his breath. "I thought the tailor would struggle with those hips." Her breath caught. People around them laughed politely, not realizing. She blinked once, twice. He had just mocked her. On their wedding altar. Still smiling, she faced the officiator, her voice calm. "Shall we proceed?" The priest gave the usual introductions. He turned to Tobe first. "Tobe, do you have your vows?" Tobe smirked. "Of course." He stepped forward, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "My dearest Amaka," he began. "I remember when I met you, I thought, well, she's not my type, but let's see where it goes." The crowd chuckled awkwardly. Amaka didn't move. "But here we are. I've watched you grow, and honestly, I think with a little more polish, you could be the kind of wife who fits this lifestyle. So today I say, I'm willing to work with you." Someone in the crowd gasped. Her mother shifted in her seat. The priest cleared his throat. Amaka slowly turned to face him. Then calmly she asked, "May I say my vows now?" He nodded smugly. She took the mic and the room went silent. Amaka held the microphone like it was made of glass, delicate but dangerous if broken. She didn't look at Tobe. She looked out at the guests, friends, family, strangers. People who thought they came to witness a love story. Her voice when she spoke was clear, calm, but beneath it something sharp brewed. "I had written my vows," she began, "but I'm going to say something different." A murmur swept through the crowd. Cameras still flashed. Toby smirked again, leaning back like he was watching a show. "You see," she continued, "love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Like the way I used to lower my voice to avoid making you angry." Toby's smile faded slightly. "Or the way I started deleting photos on Instagram because you said I was too showy." Now the crowd was really watching. She turned to him. "You said I was too much, too ambitious, too proud, too opinionated, and I started believing that maybe if I was less, you'd love me more." Silence. "But you see, Toby, love isn't about shrinking. It's not about erasing yourself to make someone else feel big. And if this is what love is supposed to look like, then today, I choose something else." Toby stepped forward, voice low. "Amaka, what are you doing?" She looked at him, not blinking, finishing what I should have ended months ago. A soft gasp came from the second row. His mother clutched her handbag tighter. Amaka turned back to the audience. "Toby and I were supposed to build a life together, but I realized I was the only one doing the building. He was too busy tearing me down, privately and now, publicly." Toby's jaw clenched. "You're embarrassing me." She smiled. "Funny, you weren't worried about that when you made jokes about my body during your vows." He reached for her arm. "Enough." A voice rose from the guests. "Let her speak." Heads turned. It was Amaka's former professor. His voice was firm, protective. She nodded at him, grateful, and then turned back to Toby. I found out about your messages to Anita, she said. The air shifted. Toby froze. You know, Amaka added, your ex, the one you swore was just a friend. You said she was like a sister. But sisters don't send photos like that at midnight. A few guests gasped. Toby's best man shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want to believe it, Amaka said, so I checked the phone again. Then I found the second number, the one you used to message her, and others. Now the room was deathly still. Toby looked like he might explode. This wedding, she said, voice unwavering, is no longer a union, it's an intervention. Then, for the first time since she walked down the aisle, Amaka smiled, and slowly she reached into her bouquet and pulled out a small flash drive. And if anyone needs proof, I brought receipts. You could hear a pin drop. The crowd sat frozen. No one moved, no one whispered. Even the violinist in the corner lowered his bow. All eyes were on the flash drive in Amaka's hand. Toby's voice cracked the silence. This is madness. But his eyes were no longer cocky. They were frantic, searching, cornered. Amaka turned calmly to the priest. With your permission, sir. The priest hesitated, visibly shaken. My dear, perhaps this is not the time. It's exactly the time, she interrupted, her tone respectful but firm. The truth doesn't wait for a convenient moment. From the crowd, a tech-savvy cousin rose to his feet. There's a projector connected to the media table. Without waiting for approval, he walked over, plugged in a laptop, and inserted the drive. Toby grabbed Amaka's wrist. Stop this. You don't know what you're doing. She looked him dead in the eye. No, Toby, you didn't know who I was. The screen flickered to life, and then, proof. First, screenshots. Late-night texts from Toby to Anita. Miss your body. She's not like you. Too serious. After the wedding, I'll come to Abuja and we'll talk. The crowd gasped. Then came voice notes. Toby's voice, smooth, low, saying things no groom should say the night before his wedding. It's just for image, babe. She's good for the brand. NGO girl, grassroots story, all that empowerment rubbish. Investors love it. Someone in the audience covered their mouth. Toby stepped forward. This doesn't prove anything. Amaka faced the crowd. There's more. A short video began to play, hidden camera footage from Amaka's friend's apartment. Anita sitting on a couch, laughing nervously. He said the marriage was just to please his parents, Anita said, that she was too boring for him, but good for public relations. Amaka turned away from the screen. She didn't need to watch it. She had lived it. She met Tobe's eyes one last time. You told me I was lucky to have you, that no one else would want a woman with a past. But look at me now. He was pale, furious. You're finished. She didn't flinch. No, Tobe, you are. Two voices suddenly rose in the crowd. We're pulling out the real estate deal, said an elderly man in a black kaftan. Your company has no integrity. And I'll be making a formal statement to our board, added a woman in corporate glasses. This kind of behaviour reflects badly on our fund. Tobe turned around, stunned. His empire was unravelling, right there, in front of everyone. Amaka looked at the priest. I believe this wedding is over. And just as she stepped away from the altar, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. A message from Anita. We need to talk. There's something I didn't tell you. It's bigger than you think. Amaka stepped into the empty bridal suite, her heels echoing against the marble tiles. The door clicked shut behind her, drowning out the murmurs and chaos from the ballroom. Her hands were still shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. She had done it. She'd exposed him. But now, that message. Anita, we need to talk. There's something I didn't tell you. It's bigger than you think. Amaka sat down slowly, her wedding gown folding around her like soft armor. She took a deep breath and called the number. It rang twice. Then Anita's voice came on, low and hurried. You're braver than I thought. I didn't do it to be brave, Amaka replied, her voice cold. What do you want? I need you to know, Anita said, that it wasn't just you. Amaka frowned. What do you mean? There was a pause. Tobe has done this before. You weren't the first woman he used to boost his image, secure deals, or charm investors. Amaka's stomach twisted. What are you talking about? There was another woman, Anita continued, her voice cracking. Her name was Kamsi. She was a journalist, smart, outspoken, too outspoken. Tobe dated her 2 years ago, promised her a job, a future. She started asking questions about his company's offshore accounts and where investor funds were going. Amaka sat upright. Wait, offshore accounts? Yes, Anita said. She was digging into fraud. Then suddenly, she vanished. Official story was she left the country, but her family never heard from her again. Amaka's heart dropped. Why are you telling me this now? Because I think she tried to warn someone. And now, I think she tried to warn me, Anita said. Last week, I found an old email address I forgot I had. She'd sent me a file, encrypted. I only remembered it after your speech. There was a brief silence. Then Anita whispered, I'm scared. Send me the file, Amaka said quickly. I'll look into it. Already done, Anita replied. I forwarded it just before I called. Amaka hung up and opened her inbox. There it was. For when you're ready, from Kamsi Ijoma. She clicked it open. Inside was a letter and several attachments. Bank documents, signed NDAs, wire transfers to shell companies, and emails between Tobe and a foreign consultant discussing project silencing. Amaka covered her mouth. He hadn't just been cheating, he was laundering money, and possibly silencing anyone who got too close. Her hands trembled again, but this time with something else. Rage. She looked in the mirror. Her makeup was flawless, her face calm, but inside, the storm had only just begun. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. A staff member peeked in nervously. Ma, sorry to disturb you, but some men are here to see you. Men? Amaka asked. Yes, from the EFCC. They said it's about your husband. 3 EFCC agents stood in the hotel hallway, black suits, stern faces, and eyes that held the weight of too many secrets. The taller one stepped forward. Barrister Amaka Eze. She nodded slowly. We were contacted by a whistleblower with information on Mr. Tobena Okonkwo. We believe you're in possession of evidence connected to an ongoing fraud and disappearance case. Amaka didn't flinch. I have something, but I want to speak on record and in public. The agent raised an eyebrow. You're sure? I'm not hiding anymore, she said. Within the hour, Amaka was seated across from the agents in a quiet conference room at the hotel. The flash drive from Anita had been backed up, scanned and confirmed. The documents were damning. Foreign wire transfers, shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, falsified project invoices tied to an NGO that never existed. But one thing stood out. A name buried in the files. Kamsi Ijoma. Expense category. Issue management. Closed. Closed? Amaka asked, voice tight. What does that mean? The lead agent exchanged a look with his colleague. It means someone signed off on her being silenced, he said. Permanently. We'll open a formal investigation. Amaka stared down at the file, her mind racing. Kamsi had tried to do what she just did, and she vanished. Would she be next? She exhaled slowly. What happens now? We move quickly, the agent replied. We've already put a hold on his accounts, but we need him off the streets. Where is he now? Amaka thought. He stormed out of the wedding hall, probably to his hotel suite or back to his private residence in Banana Island. The agents nodded. One of them stepped outside to make a call. She rose to her feet. I want to do more than just hand over files. What do you mean? I want to go live, Amaka said. A statement, a message. The people who believed in my NGO deserve to know I wasn't part of his mess, and Kamsi deserves a voice. They hesitated, but then one nodded. We'll arrange it. 2 hours later, Amaka sat before a live stream camera. Her gown gone, now replaced with a simple white blouse and scarf, her face bare, but radiant with purpose. She looked into the lens, her voice calm. I was supposed to get married today, she began, but instead I found freedom, and I found truth. This is for every woman who's been used as decoration, every woman silenced by wealth, charm, or fear. Then she named Toby. She named the shell companies. She named Kamsi. And the internet exploded. By morning her name was trending nationwide. But Toby hadn't been arrested yet. And as the agents combed through his estate that night, a quiet call came through to Amaka's phone. She picked up and froze. The voice was hoarse, panicked. It was Toby. You made your point, but you don't know who you're playing with. They're watching both of us now, and if I go down, I'm not going alone. Amaka stood by her apartment window the next morning, watching Lagos come alive. Horns blaring, hawkers calling, life moving, as if her world hadn't just caught fire. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Hundreds of messages, emails, calls from journalists, women thanking her, men apologizing for laughing during Toby's vows. Even her estranged father had called, saying he was proud of her, for the first time in years. But the message from Toby kept replaying in her mind. They're watching both of us. If I go down, I'm not going alone. Who was they? Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was Anita. Eyes red, voice raw. He's gone. Amaka's heart stopped. What do you mean, gone? I just got a call from his driver. Toby disappeared last night before EFCC got to the house. Took a boat from the private dock. No one's seen him since. Number 4. Amaka felt the floor shift under her feet. He ran? Anita nodded, tears spilling. He knew something was coming. Later that day, a nationwide bulletin was issued. Tobena Okonkwo, wanted for financial fraud, conspiracy, and connection to the disappearance of journalist Kamsi Ijeoma. But the news didn't stop there. 2 more names were revealed. Politicians and business tycoons linked to the same money laundering network. Kamsi's research had uncovered it all. Tobe was just the golden boy they used to clean their dirt. He wasn't bluffing when he said he wasn't going down alone. Amaka watched it unfold like a film, one woman's wedding turning into the spark that cracked open a multi-billion naira scandal. 2 days later, she stood at a vigil held in honor of Kamsi Ijeoma. The crowd was mostly young women, journalists, activists, survivors. They held candles, wore black, and chanted one name over and over. Justice for Kamsi. Amaka stepped to the mic. She was braver than me. She was braver than most of us. And though they tried to bury her, they didn't know she was a seed. Applause, tears, unity. In the weeks that followed, Amaka expanded her NGO, now renamed Her Voice Never Dies. Donations poured in. Survivors came forward. Even whistleblowers within the financial sector reached out. Anita joined the organization. Laws were proposed. A new task force was formed. And as for Tobe, Interpol issued a global warrant. Rumors of him being in Dubai, Turkey, or South Africa filled the blogs. But Amaka no longer needed to chase him. He was no longer her story. Her story was power reclaimed. Months later, standing at another wedding, not hers, but a friend's, someone asked her, "Do you regret how your wedding ended?" Amaka smiled softly, her eyes on the happy couple dancing. "No," she said. "It didn't end. It transformed. I walked into that hall hoping to start a life with someone. I walked out finally choosing myself." She turned to the woman. "And trust me, that was the real beginning." If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.